of today, M80 against Spacestation Gaming. No better team for Spacestation to be playing in their debut in Stage 2 with a brand new player than Spoit, Iconic, and all their Brazilian friends.
Is that true? I don't know if I'd want to go up against these guys for my first time, especially if I'm the new guy coming to Spacestation. This is a tough team.
Nah, this is nothing for them. These guys know what it takes. Listen, you got to beat everyone. It doesn't matter who's on the board. You got to beat everyone. And looking at this roster of M80, the one thing I love about M80, again, these are just a bunch of bros playing together, and they make it look beautiful every time they play.
They do, and although this will be a tougher game for Spacestation because we expect high things of M80, they have shown some weaknesses in the past, right? We saw last week their cafe attacks just killed them in their most recent game. So struggling with some plants sometimes down on the bottom floor, generally felt like they weren't really able to get themselves their utility to find some early picks. So this is a team that is, in some sense, down. Losing their last game, gonna have to come back, gonna have to show that that was just a fluke. Listen, we may have lost to Oxygen, but Spacestation, we're no chumps.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing with going into this game as a whole is they're going to have to prove themselves not only to the rest of the week. I'm losing track of what I'm even saying here because I'm just excited for this game. I'm excited for Spacestation to be showcasing what they have going into this game and M80 going against it. I want to see M80 improve what they were lacking against Oxygen. Fox talked about it specifically that they saw a lot of space given up by M80, whereas M80 usually is just straight up in your face, not giving you that ground. So going into this, I really want to see M80 just keep that aggressive play style and keep that tenacity going throughout the game.
Their opponents heading into this bad boy is a team we still have yet to see make their debut in Stage 2, but their time starts now. Full Hot and Cold Forest and J9 you know very well from previous competitions, but we got some new blood in the unit finally. Laxing, what makes Ashen so special, dude?
Ashen, I mean, he's been a talk of a town for a long time. Even when I was playing, you were constantly hearing about Ashen. So I'm glad to finally see him in the Pro League setting. I saw what he did in some, minor tournaments and stuff like that, but now he's in Pro League. Now this is where you are going to perform, and this is where you need to be performing at the level, at the highest possibility for your team.
Yeah, and Ashen, of course, just turning 18 recently. He's going to be a great addition to Spacestation, coming in, replacing Merc, who is having his own success over on Wildcard. But we've seen Ashen come on in, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how the roles change on Spacestation to incorporate him into the team. Because while Ashen can be a big fragger, and he's a very skilled young player, and he can maybe fill in those roles for Merc, what we saw from Breaking Point was a lot of that good Yana entry play, but also sometimes flexing around a little bit more operator diversity than what we were sometimes seeing from Merc. Some Dokkaebi coming in that maybe then took some roles away from Faults, who did a little bit more hard breaching. And then we saw maybe some more roles change from Forest, who got to pick up his own entry frag and some Yana play. I'll be really interested to see how things kind of settle in. I don't think it'll be too different from a role perspective from Spacestation, but you never know.
When I talked to Callout specifically for their Breaking Point interviews, he was very cagey about what maps they were or weren't going to play. So are we going to see a new map get brought out here? Do they want to do an old one that's very familiar to kind of get Ashen into things? Where are we going, Jesse?
I expected a Chalet, was my prediction for these two teams, because it is one that we've seen M80 love. They love that map, and SSG did win it 7-0 in the offseason as well, with Ashen on the roster. So that was my pick going in here. As far as other maps that could come through, you were talking about the new maps. Nighthaven is one that M80 have yet to ban, so we've never seen them get rid of that. It's a possibility if Spacestation want it. Consulates, M80, 1 for 2 on bans so far. Again, very tough to know for Spacestation if they're going to be willing to ban that map or not, because we've just never seen them play in the NAL.
I mean, I was curious to see if we, like you were saying, Chalet, after seeing Breaking Point and seeing how well they performed on that, I mean, that's a good map for both M80 and SSG, so I'm curious if that's where that's going to end overall. And, I mean, even looking at the map pool as a whole, I mean, are we able to bring up the maps?
Probably, yeah, no, we absolutely will in a second. I think we're doing it right now. Ooh, look at that.
Wow.
Okay, so your Chalet, second last pick there. We saw Spacestation banning out. If I'm M80, I'm thinking maybe we go Chalet, maybe we go Nighthaven. I would say this is a little bit of a curveball, a little bit of a twist, but shouldn't be too unexpected. And again, M80, 0 bans on Nighthaven Labs for the stage so far, so they should be very prepared for this.
Lax, it's just crazy to see Spacestation pick up a new player and go to a new map. Is that too many things for them to juggle?
Well, they did have an extra week. They did see it get played, so that does allow them a lot more time to get, familiar with it, see what the other teams are doing, maybe implement now into their strat. So I can definitely see that. I am more surprised about the Chalet ban, given how strong SSG are at it.
I mean, if M80 can go back and look at any footage on Chalet, it immediately puts SSG in a bit of a hole, right? So hopefully they've got some interesting things cooked up for this one. But just talking about the rookies, what do you do if you're Ashen in a case like this? Brand new map, brand new team. Hopefully he can be as flexible as COD and everyone else wants them to be, being that kind of plug-and-play character. Do you think you have the same kind of opinion about new players? Because Ashen comes from the same crop of guys that you play with on PB.
Well, I'll say this. When you pick up a new player, no matter what, you're giving them the benefit of the doubt regardless of what you do. You are hoping that they're going to perform well above and beyond regardless of what everyone else on the team is. That's the reason why you got picked up. It's because you're going to perform. So in terms of Ashen, what is he going to do differently? I don't think he needs to do anything differently. He just needs to show up, play his game, be the teammate that he needs to be, and perform. That's it.
Anything about Ashen that you like?
I mean, I'm excited to see how he does, right? Obviously, we haven't seen him so far. I think coming into Nighthaven's a bit of an interesting challenge because from what we've seen, both in the NAL and we've seen it played in BR6 a little bit, some of the other regions for sure, it seems like it's a pretty attacker-sided map to begin with, right? We're seeing a lot of teams struggle to lock down those defensive halves. We've seen a lot of great pushes coming through from a variety of teams around the world. So I think the real challenge is going to be for Ashen and for the rest of Space Station Gaming coming to this, how do we lock things down? How do we be spontaneous on the defense? How do we make moves that are going to really upset our opponents and lock down those holds, because it can be really tough on the defense.
I mean, we had a little bit of this discussion for Oxygen and DZ when they played it on Playday 2. It's a brand new map, so you need to figure out everything slowly over time, whether it's because you're the one playing it or because you're watching other teams trial and error to see what works out appropriately. So if you were to lose this map, is that necessarily a huge deal for either of these teams?
I would say for Space Station coming in, it's not great because it is your first show day, it is your first game day, and on that back note, it could be because it's a new map, just like we were talking with Dark Zero and Oxygen. So you just shake it off. It's a new map. Now we focus on our stronger side of the map pool and go from there. So I can see it be a 50-50.
I do think, though, for Space Station Gaming, because they have a doubleheader today and every other play day throughout the week, if they get completely trashed by M80, if they get like 7-0'd, 7-1, 7-2'd, and they're not in a good mental space, especially having a rookie on the team, their next game is against LG. That's one they want to be winning. If that can carry over, if they get in a bad space, that's my concern.
To touch on their opponents just a tad bit more, do you remember back when Theme Park came in the pool for the first time and it was something that XSET or M80 banned consistently and it was something that they never really touched? And then right around the time the Berlin Major comes around, Bodega's like, yeah, well, let's actually bring Theme Park out, and suddenly they're really, really good at it. Do you figure that M80 taking a new map is like a completely expected play, or is this a little bit weird because Nighthaven is literally brand new this stage?
Again, it goes into like what you want to show and what you don't want to show. So yeah, in terms of M80 now just showing it pretty early, that does maybe come as a little bit of a surprise. Whereas, maybe keeping it for later on when they maybe accumulate more points, they can maybe, forfeit that a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, getting it out of the way, getting a feel for it. And if you show it that you're strong, no one's going to want to take you to it. And then you still have stronger maps that you've been playing.
I'm not surprised at all, Jacob, because for M80, the maps that were taken out of the pool were Villa and it was Theme Park. Two maps that, at least in recent history, M80 have been very good at. So they lost some crucial parts of their map pool. I wasn't expecting them to flex into some of the maps that they don't often play. So you kind of are forced to pick up these new maps or learn some of the maps that you've historically just stayed away from. So I don't think it's that surprising from M80's POV, just because their map pool was so devastated by the two maps that initially got removed.
Well, it's a really good time to finally get our second ever Nighthaven Labs play in the North American League. We saw it last week. We're going to see it again. Two completely different rosters, and it's Space Station's debut with Ashen on the opposite side. We're throwing to casters. It is the Chicago Bears fan and somebody who I don't know if he actually follows the NFL or not, but I can't say he's a Colts fan just because he lives in Indiana. It's Stokes and Lynx.
For the record, I do not support the Colts, but that's also because I don't watch football. But anyway, Sam, SSG have decided to jump with their feet first into the deep end. Not only are they bringing a new player on the roster, but they've decided to start their NAL debut on a map that neither M80 nor SSG have played up until this point, being Nighthaven Labs.
Yes, indeed. And just like the Chicago Bears, they have an advantage coming into this, but we'll see if they just constantly throw little screen passes and run the ball when you have amazing things that you paid for in the offseason. Anyways, getting on to better things. I'm really, really excited to see what Space Station can produce on this map, Lynx, and I'll tell you why. We saw them a month ago. We saw them play with Ashen. There were some flashes, some glimpses of what this team could do, and there is a really good backing and supporting staff to this team. You can say the same thing about M80 as well, so expect big guns to be drawn out here on Nighthaven Labs, and it's going to start in the bans already, as we'll get rid of Blitz.
Honestly, for Nighthaven, especially how much this map still needs to develop and still needs time to cook, I think getting rid of some of these cheesier operators like Blitz, like Montaigne, is really good for the defense. It's only had one play in North America, but it's at a 70% attacker win rate so far, and as Jesse predicted, likely because of the state of the meta, whereas normally new maps have a defensive bias, this might have an attacker bias, given how hard it is to maybe hold the large portions of the map, just how big it is. Taking out the Blitz and the Montaigne first, that takes away some operators that the attack might rely on to just get a quick clear or catch the defense off guard, but that does mean Ying is left up, and SSG will likely bring her quite a few times to achieve a similar purpose.
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody will be favoring Ying in this one, more than likely. And also a really smart ban coming in from the defense there. Fenrir, more of just a general purpose thing nowadays, because a lot of people like to clog up those longer angles or just the entry points to the site with some of that fear gas, right? Works out really, really well for him and the rest of the team, honestly, for those entries. But the big thing is the bandit ban coming in, right, Lynx? Because this is going to hinder a lot of the bandit tricking, especially on the top floor. We see it more towards the connector room and sometimes over in IT. Really just depends on what's going on. A lot of teams figuring things out with Thatcher and multiple hard breaches, the little bit of Nighthaven Labs that we've seen so far. So this is going to be a new fold that we're presented coming in here with the start of the Super Week.
And I think it's especially a good point that all the operators banned generally all are easy ways for the attack or the defense to get control. Oh, we're struggling to clear this part of the map, bring a blitz. Oh, we're struggling to waste time, bring a bandit and bandit trick it. All of those operators now gone. The defense and the attack both have to rely on either fewer options to achieve similar plays or just on broader play overall. We do still have a Zombie and Valkyrie up for the defense, and both brought by M80, and both likely will play focal points in denying SSG some control in the first and the second floor portions of the map before they work down to the basement, which is our first bomb site.
And you can see the roam game already getting developed here from M80. And reinforcements getting slapped on the server for the connector wall here. He's got one more for himself. Yes, indeed. TSSG getting to work downstairs as well, as this is going to be a basement attack. And this is the big thing here, is this is basically an extension. Imagine, if you will, Clubhouse with a lot more walls accessible from dirt. That's essentially what you get down here. So M80 is going to have to be aware of that. They'll have to pull this back eventually if SSG end up going quite aggressive on that basement floor. But it's all in due time. SSG want to see what's going on around the map and potentially see if they can set up a cross or something along those lines to try and get a pick.
A large portion of M80's extension, as you mentioned, large portion of it is focused around defending that garage hatch, which would give a direct line of sight onto the Animus wall, which SSG opened up within the first 20 seconds of the round. Kino is making sure that nobody can walk into garage for free, but now he's backed off as the IT walls opened up. Playing directly inside a garage could avail himself to that angle. It's instead M80 who starts things off on a good note. J90 cut down, though the Dokkaebi call still going out and revealing different defenders' positions. Now that that phone call has gone silent, there's no second phone call incoming with that Dokkaebi now taken down. Iconic does spot another. Oh, sees the Osa just setting up that Talon shield inside of tank.
And you can see the amount of verticality that's worked into this map on this roam here. This is what we were looking more for on the first week of play, Links, when we were talking more about the extensions up top. We saw a lot of default play, something you'd see that wouldn't cause a lot of struggle, cause a lot of grief for these clears, but you can see just how crazy this map can get. Look at the verticality getting worked in by both teams. Iconic gets a pick, and then immediately gets picked off from the top floor.
Barrier placed. We're covered.
And now M80 in a great spot to fall back in the final minute. While SSG have that vertical control they were looking for and still some angles on the breach opened up, M80 have gotten 2 kills, stalled SSG's clear, even put Fultz down to low HP, and they still, while they're lacking a C4 in pocket, it's pre-placed, I believe, at the moment. So still some options if SSG walk along a certain spot to blow them up. Hot and Cold has worked his way in, but DS Lucas has accounted for this. Placed Kiba barriers at certain spots on the windows and doors, but not entirely. DS Lucas still now fallen, not by Hot and Cold, but instead by Ashen, pushing down the cargo stairs. Now SSG, with 30 seconds left, have a decent opening. There was one player by himself, never mind, with support in tank, but still cut down. Kino's able to make it a 2v2 once again. One player in the front, one player in the back. Now one attacker pushing directly into the bomb site. Kino spots one. That's not the man with the diffuser. Fultz instead will fall off. They'll play the 2v2. Now the 2v1. A very smart decision by the Ace to bring his gun up and fall off the diffuser. Now Kino's got to kill the coverage and the planter, but with 3 seconds left, might just be able to stall on time. Down goes Fultz, and he doesn't even need to finish off the rookie. M80 take round 1 on time.
Space Station so very close to that round, but Kino able to work his way to the outside hallway, get the boomstick out, and make most of the situation there. Especially a nice pick onto the ace. He knew he had to play back and forth on both of those angles, and does it with such grace, but that's what you expect out of Kino. We've seen it time and time again from him. Spacestation, looking for that plant. I love the fake there, especially Lynx. They wanted to try and get people to commit. That's what they got, just not the expected result. I think overall, though, that round was a fantastic showcasing of what this map has to offer. An extended roam leads into a full clear from SSG. We've got some crazy angles from Iconic here. A great find from him onto Forest, especially after that earlier pick that he had. SSG is forced into more of an aggressive clear of the downstairs, and it really shows off just how big of a labyrinth this basement is, right? There's so many soft walls in between all of these different rooms, and you really have to be able to play these angles tightly, because if you can't, you're more than likely going to go down, whether it be through verticality, through a lot of the soft flooring that we see over in the area where Gomez is standing right now, or through other means, you know, more traditionally, like horizontal.
Speaking of horizontal, we do see Forest bringing out the Ying, so those Candelas will be in play, likely to aid that horizontal push into the bomb site, but even maybe some verticality if SG try to go for the roam clear up above, which they likely will do. Again, talk about the presence of the soft floors across this map, and there's certainly plenty on top of storage and on top of security. The IT breach being accessible to the outside, it'll be a focal point for the attack strategy early on, in which they'll likely also enter in through that very breach to deal with players like Spoit later on in the round.
You can see M80's entire defensive standpoint here with the reinforcements is to try and hold them out of the actual areas they need to work into on the top side of this map. A lot of these reinforcements are breaking up lines of sight. They're holding on to key reinforcements towards the outside of the building. We saw the entirety of delivery reinforced. IT is completely reinforced. Some of the longer panels downstairs for kitchen they're just trying to make sure that they have to try and work their way in through the worst possible position for this downstairs area. Nobody really suspecting the exothermic as of right now. Forrest might have himself a free kill, and he will. Doesn't even have to use one of his charges yet to work his way towards the back barrels room. The plant already going off. They have some verticality to cover. I do believe that this will go off without a hitch. No real chance here until Spoit's able to pick that up. And a beautiful find above. Spoit will be able to at least pick up two, but the deed is already done.
And it might be over if M80 can maneuver themselves into the right position. They've Kiva'd off the cargo window, but nobody's moving in to defuse the bomb just yet. Diaz has taken down the vertical control, so he can hold anybody defusing from up above. There's just the players inside of the bomb site itself to worry about. Down goes two in one quick spray from two different players on M80. Forrest, the man who initiated all this carnage, now the only one left. Spots one, make that two, but not three, as the first man he looks at is the last one to kill. With just barely enough time remaining, M80 take their second round off the defuse.
Like I was watching Counter-Strike there for just a split second, man. He had the trigger discipline, didn't shoot Iconic, swings for two. But Iconic, smart enough to not commit to the defuse there. A very risky thing to do in Rainbow Six Siege. Unlike CS, where you do have that just single tap, we have a constant buzzer that goes off every once in a while, so they'll know that. And also, secondly, his teammates really needed his help, so able to secure that kill and secure the round via that. Fantastic from Iconic, and yet another clutch round coming out for him when they really needed him in that moment. We saw the big 2K from him in the very first round, and this one, they get a grandstand when needed most. But really, the shining star of this one has to be Spoit on this retake 19.
Absolutely, denying that vertical angle to cover the plant for the attack, opened everything up, but even still, credit to SSG. It seemed like the smart play at the time, but once Forrest committed that second swing, not killing Iconic, maybe for once, the lack of trigger discipline would have been the better solution, but in a quick moment like that, it's often hard to see what is the right decision. And Forrest still got a very impressive play, even if it didn't get the round win. This is, I will say, though, if you're an SSG fan, a bit of a worrying start. Not because they've been performing badly, not at all, in fact. Able to push into the bomb site, get a bomb down in round 2 on a new map. It's very impressive so far, but this is starting similar to the M80 DZ game last week, where they got 4 clutch rounds in a row and ended up closing out that game 7-2. We're not at 4 rounds just yet, but we are at 2 clutches by M80 so far. And if they can keep this momentum rolling, SSG's great attacks might still not be enough.
Yeah, the clutch gene is something that's hard to produce for teams. And the thing is that you can have a player that has a clutch gene, right? But as an overall squad, it's something that's difficult because it requires a lot of synergy. But we're seeing that from M80. They're constantly winning out the micro duels with SSG, right? Maybe just one hair better, but that one hair better is winning them rounds. And that's a scary thing right now. We are seeing this constantly get down to a one-on-one situation, but M80 are sweeping it under the rug time and time again, whether it be through actual 1vx situations like what we saw in Kino's case, or whether it be a refrag like what we saw with Iconic. Bolts is going to work his way up to the connector wall. One of the exothermics down here, but this is the only the first piece of the puzzle here, Lynx. We have to break this through and actually try and pierce the veil yet again. See if we can work our way through connector to server.
Opening up the IT breach, opening up the terrace breach, or the connector breach, whatever you want to call it. Always the first two steps when you attack this top floor. Again, the clubhouse comparisons are always apt, and we always bring them in, but this is another good one. Similar to opening up like Plat Wall and Jacuzzi Wall early on. They're two very accessible.
Old time too, because you have the impact trick, right?
Yeah, and so with them being so accessible and them being exterior, just very easy to just start off. But now this is the part where SSG actually need to start making progress, because we're a minute 15 left. M80 might have given up direct control of Garage, but still have ways they can contest it. At least still ways where they can box SSG in and stop them from pushing forward.
A little scary that we're forced underneath too. Iconic might be able to find him if he starts trying to drone around, but you can see where these frag grenades could potentially lead to a couple of M80 players' downfalls. We'll be able to at least get some damage off onto Spoit, but you still have to try and worry about what's going on over on the terrace side of things. You guys saw that reinforcement with the impact trick set up over top, and that's what I was referencing with that Jacuzzi setup. Used to be the old style of defending the Jacuzzi wall, actually, for clubhouse wall. Well, they ended up putting that metal strip at the top. Be Iconic though. We'll lead off here. M80 with some big pickups. Nitro Cell out. They know somebody's in IT, and Kino's going to swing for the fences, but he gets taken down. But not before M80 are able to pick up yet another frag. Looking quite easy for them thus far. Hot and cold to go down. It's all left up to J9. And O is exactly what he'll get. Spoit with another round and 0 so far for SSG.
No clutch even needed that time. Very dominant performance throughout. SSG starting off their attack with what we'd expect, opening up that IT breach, opening up that terrace wall. But then afterwards, struggling to find any entry point into the bomb site afterwards. We saw a couple players try to lurk in, Ashen, for example, lurking in through the IT breach into IT itself, but not able to progress very far beyond that point. M80 had players down below to stop anybody from walking in, being Iconic predominantly sitting down below inside of Kitchen and Cafe. And even though SSG, I believe, had players, they had Forest down below to deal with that, Iconic never really found much resistance, and M80 as a whole didn't find much resistance either in round 3.
Yeah, SSG tried to go pretty direct, it seemed, at the end of the day, minus what we saw with that little photo of the Yana down low, right? Trying to get some grenades underneath, doing some damage to Spoit. But M80 were very gung-ho about being able to head off SSG at the pass, and they did exactly that, right? I mean, SSG didn't really have an ulterior motive going on. It was really, terrace and IT focused. M80 were able to diligently solve that puzzle, and now that presents us back to the very beginning of this drawing board for SSG, as they have to go right back around this carousel and see if anything that they've learned from M80's defenses can try and assist them here. This does look to be a similar defense to what we saw from M80, but a little bit less aggressive on the roam, and some of these reinforcements definitely a little bit different from what we saw previously.
Might just be trying to stop anybody from lurking in like they did before. Even though we didn't find anything from it, that was one of the big strong points for SSG, was the ability to lurk in, specifically through this Animus breach that you see Forest opening up right now. With an OSA before, which they now lack, of course, but still able to walk on in and effectively just walk into the bomb site. Just getting the bomb down was the main difficult part of that task, but they pushed in very quickly and very easily at the beginning of round 1. And now that same strategy likely will not work, given M80's reduced presence on the top floor, but increased allocation of resources to the middle floor. That means SSG will need to respond accordingly. And players like Hot and Cold, but likely a couple others, also need to start taking fights with these players stationed around Kitchen, Cafe, and Cargo and Security.
Perfect entry here for Hot and Cold. I love this position for Nighthaven Labs for somebody like Jackal. Very, centric route that we see a lot of area, a lot of foot traffic at the, command console upstairs, as well as the bottom of that stairwell. So good areas to try and find some early information. It's already halfway through this round. SSG does have to try and get a move on, start clearing things out, start getting this floor ripped up, see what they can try and do with some of this verticality that's been gifted to them from M80.
I was talking about the players on the middle floor, and about right at that time, everyone from M80 fell back to the first floor, instead relying on a couple pre-placed C4s between Iconic and Spoit. We saw one placed on the underside of Lounge earlier, highlighted by our observer. The other one, though, likely in a different spot on the opposite side of the map, but still denying control of the bomb site. 2 kills occur in the round, 1 for each team. Both starting things off, taking down Gomez. But M80 hold on, and Kino specifically holding on to cargo control. There is a vertical hole cutting off the bottom of cargo stairs, but with nobody watching, he makes the smart read, retreats back into the bomb site before playing too aggressively and maybe losing his life. But now M80, or sorry, SSG that is, might just be able to start dropping down this hatch, moving down cargo stairs with the defense backing off. Forrest has an angle into the bomb site itself, knows someone is inside of cargo. With the skeleton key ringing, he'll move on in, does spot one, moving back further inside of Nanotech, but isn't able to peek around the Kiba barrier. M80 still firmly in control of the bomb site. No one from SSG gaining any bit of useful intel or useful angles to take in these fights. Fultz, the last one, will only just now drop the hatch, hoping that his teammates would clear the path, but instead just walking into the thicket unprotected.
What a call from Iconic. He trusts the squad, man. He trusts them to box out the entirety of that site, and that's exactly what they do. And I mean, past that, beauty, just straight beauty coming out of Spoit there as he quickly cleans up every single SSG member that decides to grace the basement, including the player inside of Animus. And that was a very difficult shot. He slid that round in between like the glass hardware at the top of that like table, which is just disgusting. Amazing, amazing, amazing round from him. And SSG, due to what we've been seeing or the lack of seeing, call a timeout here. 15 seconds remaining in this. Ashen, so far, how you feeling about his performance? I know you're an Ashen lover, so let's hear it from the heart.
I'm honestly not disappointed in his performance so far. I think I'm more so just sad that SSG aren't having a good time to shine because M80 are just so clinical on Nighthaven. And I think it's especially worrying because if you look at the first 2 rounds, SSG looked very good. They weren't stalling out all that much. They were taking control. They were finding paths that they could move into the bomb site undetected or at least take control away from the defense with only minimal opportunities or options for M80 to contest. But in those latter 2 rounds, specifically attacking the top floor and the redo of the basement, once M80 started shifting their strategy or playing further on the bomb site, SSG seemed to stall out, struggle to find those angles, and with how clinical or skilled M80 are in taking those gunfights, I think that change in the strategy might do SSG for the worst. Because if you're, say, struggling on time and you spend 2 minutes to clear the map, and then you got to fight Spoit with a Kiba to play off of, yeah, you're not winning that most of the time.
10 seconds to insertion.
No. Especially when he's rocking either, you know, a Kiba wielder over here or a 1.5. It's like, what do you really do with that? And then you have Iconic already at 5 and 1, and if you make it past those 2, there's a whole heap of trouble for you there too. Diaz hasn't even begun to show them exactly what he can do just yet. He's been kind of just lurking in the background, waiting for his moment to shine. But SSG have gotten past their timeout, ready to try and address this map again. Similar circumstances to what we'd seen previously from M80 on this defense. Going to have Valkyrie out once again for some better information about where SSG are going to try and clear from. Let's see what the adjustment is. So far, it looks like Hot and Cold on more of an aggressive operator. Didn't have the Jackal the last time. This time going to be on the Nook. Trying to sneak around these cameras.
Maybe that'll help just force some opportunities more if you're trying to work verticality or create new angles.
I guess, right? I mean,
yeah. It might be something. I mean, Hot and Cold is also one of the better lurkers we have in North America. So I don't think this is a bad idea. It's just more so need to see it work before we get there. Ooh, Spoit breached in the face, unfortunately, and spotted on a drone as well. This will be a difficult rotation back. He seems to be committing to the position now. He'll keep off the doorway, but that's his pathway back. Nobody on that barricade watching the lobby stairs, so he'll make his way, not down, but within arm's reach of egress back to the bomb site.
Only one operator in the entire game that can make that rotation, Lynx.
Yep.
He just so happens to be playing it. Give a barrier down for Azami. He'll be able to get past the door. Spacestation almost with a chance there, but Cloudy with a chance of meatballs now is only half the round remaining, less than half actually, and SSG once again dead in the water. No one really moving forward. Lots of angle holding. Now remember, the site is on the mid floor, so they could just try and surprise SSG and go direct, but do you think that Iconic's going to allow that to happen? You already see the idea working its way in. Spoit's still over on Aqua Stairs, considering his hand here. Does he want to try and rotate up? Does he want to try and commit back down? Hot and cold. We talked about this fold earlier. He is going to show his ace in the hole, be able to at least pick up one kill, but not before Iconic is able to refrag.
Well, we have something here at least. SSG, 2 kills now, have achieved a 4v3. Still took a lot of time to get there. Oh, a third opportunity just eludes an SSG player on the top floor as Kino moves to retake Garage. The moment SSG stopped watching that angle, now he sees the player moving outside the cargo window. But Kino, too, has to be careful that nobody peeks him from that breach just to the right of him. He's got to watch. He's got to be careful. Oh, sees him, but Jay and I know, despite the knowledge, misses the shots. And now M80 have equalized. Fultz looks to retake that ground, but Kino's long gone. He's in the winds, but walks right into Hot and Cold's crosshairs, who's dead in the middle of the bomb site. Sure on 50 HP and sure no diffuser. But he's got the first round that SSG might just have a chance at winning out of the last couple. Nook now spotted. Iconic now with an angle. That's Case Cold on the desk. And suddenly it slips from their fingers the moment they grasp onto hope. 5-0 for M80.
Close it. We'll revisit it at X-Files in about 20 years, Lynx. My God, it's murder on the scene. Box out again, but they finally find a way to be able to pierce their way into the central office. But they're immediately ripped up from the top floor presence. They're not able to clear things out. There's too much verticality working its way in. And M80, you said it first, Lynx, a master class here on how Nighthaven Labs works.
It's just brutal for SSG too. I mean, M80 are playing Nighthaven exceptionally well. They know that it takes so long to acquire control that if you just stall a little bit of time on the top floor, then a little bit of time on the site, that could add up to a whole lot of resources and energy expended by the attack. It forces the attack's hand as well to make plays like what Hot and Cold did, and even though those work out, M80 have been so good in these clutch situations and so good at retaking that vertical like you just saw Spoit do there, where he killed Hot and Cold, that it's taking rounds away from SSG in which they perform very well, where they do what they have to do, gain an advantage, gain control of the bomb site. M80 are extremely well practiced on this map, clearly up with the likes of DZ in their game against OXG last week.
Yeah, I think the thing even past that that's also just getting shown off, especially from SSG's perspective, right, is how difficult it is to hold on to the proper things to make plays go off here. You know, you need, for instance, what we just saw, right? You need like 1 to 2 people downstairs just covering your bomb planner, and then you also need somebody upstairs inside of command console just to make sure that you can actually cover all of the different angles that could potentially, you know, kill your planner. And there's still a lot of other soft walls and stuff that M80 had open at the back of that office too. So it just makes it so difficult to try and force down some of these plants, especially when SSG is down on the man count. There's just so many problems being presented to them right now. And I mean, no fault to them, but they really don't have an answer.
No, not really. I mean, Hot and Cold in last round, even though he's 2-5, he was a big reason why they ended up getting close to winning round 5. But still, the issue is this overall playstyle from SSG. It's creating problems that then rely on individual players to solve, and SSG are just losing those fights when they're presented them. Iconic 7-1, Spoit 7-3. SSG are getting close to playing very well, and then if there are problems in their play style, fixing them in the late round. But M80 are just stopping that based on huge individual performance and extremely good positioning. Minute 30 now, and SSG are only just walking into the terrace breach. They do have 1 kill. They've taken down Kino, who has been a big player playing in these bomb sites. And with that EMP as well, they have now started opening up the connector breach. We've talked about their slow attacks at this point, Sam. I keep saying this, but hey, they've at least opened up a way into the bomb site.
I don't know how you feel about this, but as of right now, with the small sample size that we have in this map does not feel like a map that you can execute at the last second. You really need to play for map control, and the big issue with past that is that M80, they know this. They're playing so very well for controlling the angles, just like this. They heard the drone, they knew somebody was gonna be playing actively inside of the terrace, inside of connector. And Spoit immediately swings him out. They don't want that angle to be there, so they're willing to take these fights, especially when you have, you know, some of the best fraggers in the entire world.
Spoit as well has been showing a masterclass in how to play Azami so far. Recommend anyone watches his gameplay. DS Lucas, by the way, talking about gameplay, he has not picked the MPX like most teams do, or most players do. He's picked the shotgun. He's taken a close fight, but Hot and Cold says no. He instead backs up, takes the long angle. Spoit with a huge run out to stop a player from running in, but that's now intel to the attack. They know Spoit is inside a connector. It's on Iconic now to get a clutch. Very nice shot, but it took most of his HP to make that work. And SSG, they might be low on time, but in a 2v1, this is still enough. 1 kill for Iconic again, but SSG get their first round. But look at the effort and look at the lead M80 put in and have now achieved going into the side swap.
Fultz is immediately hitting the notes. Got to read up on this. See what's going on the defensive side of Nighthaven. Don't even consider what that split was. The good news is that they have a buffer. They have 1 round that they can give up. Bad news bears, though, is that M80 have looked so dynamic, at least considering their current half. But things could switch up, at least when it comes to their fate for their offensive side. Remember, the timeout for SSG has already been used, so no matter what happens, they cannot stop this ball from rolling.
I think it's also interesting that now we have a Nighthaven game, the second Nighthaven game in the NAL, now a complete opposite defensive win rate that we saw last week. It was, I think it was a 5-1, maybe a 4-2 half for Dark Zero last week on the attack. Now it's a 5-1 defensive half for M80, so stats all over the board between these two games, but might just even out to 50-50 if you combine both of them. This definitely seemed like an M80-sided game so far, though, at the beginning of the round and at the later of the round. Even dropping that last one, hey, that's fine. I'd be fine dropping 1 round if I created an impressive lead like that going into the swap of what we seem to be theorizing at this point might just be the favored side. We'll see if M80 do have as much ease on the attack as they had on their defenses.
Oh. Forrest is dead? Where are you dead at, Forrest?
Where? What? How?
Forrest, where are you dead?
What do you do?
I don't know. It looks... now, I'm going to put this out there. I've casted this map like this is the second time. By his silhouette, it looked like he was over on the lobby side. But I don't know what happened to that, man. I don't know if he got cut off from the door there at the top of the lobby stairs or what have you, Lynx, but that's a dead man. And M80 already had the leadoff pick. It took him all of 15 seconds.
Yeah, all of 15 seconds, took down the top performer on SSG now as well, though followed very closely behind by Fultz. And also a lot of the active utility is still alive. Those ADS is already placed, so you're not losing much in terms of utility. But M80 do now have a 5v4, now a 5v3, as Fultz playing a key position to stop anybody from walking into this IT breach early. He now falls alongside that deployable shield. A lot of weight has now been put on Hot and Cold's shoulders in Garage. So many Kivas already utilized to create a fortress on these rafters. But with that IT player gone, it's up to J90 and Hot and Cold to do what that mute was supposed to in the first half of the round.
There's so many issues being presented for SSG. Look at the drone count right now for M80. They can just take their time, idly pace their way through this round, as they've done already. I mean, M80 really just patiently waiting right outside of the IT breach. SSG try and find something, and obviously after the initial pick, really trying to catch M80 off guard, but obviously not going the way that they wanted to. Double stun here from Iconic. He'll hop in, and they will immediately execute the top of Garage. It's all down to Ash, and he'll be able to get nothing. The shotgun can't even get the first one. Spoit will have quite a bit of HP on that swing, and to be honest with you, he wasn't going to make it too far. There was 2 other people spraying him down from the Garage angle. So it's going to be M80 leading this one 6-1.
Just a calamity of errors for SSG to start. I mean, losing Forrest so early on, and then they decide to keep Fultz on that position inside of IT, where he is very exposed there. I mean, there might be ADSs, he might have a deployable shield, but given how coordinated M80 have shown they can be when they're operating at a high level, that's a risky position, even in a 5v5, let alone a 5v4. So keeping Fultz there, and then he dies very quickly, M80 would really have to mess up and really have to stall out to lose that round, because they have 1:40 seconds to just completely pressure the Azami in Garage. And they can do that from the window, the doorway, the IT breach. SSG, because they entered that 5v3 and because they still decided to keep that player in Garage, understandably, at that point, M80 were given everything they needed to make that attack work in more than enough time to do it.
10 seconds remaining.
Well, Space Station,
5 seconds left.
speak now or forever hold your peace.
Maybe later.
Yeah, it was very first game of the day,
locate and
and so
defuse the
far,
bomb.
one round. I mean, there is some things to talk about when it comes to the team's play. I mean, Ashen showing some flashes early on, but past that hasn't been playing too well. J9O, dead silent today. And as for our previous MVP of the NAL, Hot and Cold, had a couple big rounds, had some big openers to be able to get some plants for him, but past that, not really able to do much. It's been the M80 show, the M80 world, and we've really just been living in it.
Thankfully, no early start to the man advantage this go around for SSG.
Count your blessings.
Yeah, all 5 players alive. That is certainly a blessing. Even if we're kind of scraping for the bare minimum, unfortunately, in 6-1 score lines, the bare minimum is often very, very comforting in a game that has just not been going your way whatsoever. Not necessarily a poor performance from Ashen so far, the new player, just the team seems to be outclassed at this moment. Trying to stop M80 from pushing in the meeting room. There's just nobody on the attack who is scared by this pressure. Throwing in utility on utility to deal with this zombie if they can. Haven't found anything just yet. Oh, just barely spraying on the opposite side. There's a Keeb on the opposite side of that wall, and a tight angle does Ashen in the moment he takes it.
Not exactly an angle that you want to challenge, but ends up paying one over to the other team. Kino, we saw it building, didn't know if he was going to step into the hallway, let it breathe. And SSG decimated now. It's up to Forrest, and there's still one on Repel outside. Yes, Lucas, he doesn't get it. That's Case. That's Case control. Oh, Forrest could do the funniest thing ever right now.
If he wins this round, this would be a digest moment if I've ever seen it. Does see one walking up the lobby stairs. Still on low HP, knows the outside breach is something he has to be concerned about. He'll instead drop down below, right into their crosshairs.
Look at the smile on DS. He's like, oh, man.
Definitely a bummer way to end that, Sam, unfortunately, but not if you're M80. I mean, clinical all the way through. We'll throw this back to the desk to talk about an unfortunate debut for SSG.